Welcome back to another episode of Lady Justice Talks, where curiosity meets law. Today you're here with your host,
Rubo.
and Susuvi. And I also have my wonderful guest, Sarah Jones, who is the counsel at the Public Guardian and Trustee. How are you doing today, Sarah?
I'm very well, thank you.
Yeah, I usually don't do introductions like this, but honestly, I feel like I need to do it for how me and Sarah met. I was on a very random trip to Montreal in March, and that's why it's random, because that's exam season. I don't know what I was doing there. And then I was taking a picture in front of, what was it?
It was the Court of Appeal.
Thank you.
I was being a law nerd and taking a photo and trying to
my
show my children. I was like, oh my goodness, it's the Court of Appeal.
And I was just taking the picture because I thought it looked cool. You know, like the
and I thought you
different-
must be a lawyer, because who else would stop in front of such a random building in
Thank you.
Montreal?
I did not know I looked like a lawyer at all. I didn't think I was dressed to look like a lawyer at
That's
all.
a big compliment.
Thank you. Yeah.
I don't know that it is, actually. But I'm glad you'll take it that
And
way.
then, yeah, we connected. And that's why, you guys, when I tell you networking happens in wonderful ways, I mean it. It's not a lie. So I guess that really, takes us into the fact that you're very interested in law. You're a law nerd, as you called yourself. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background in law, what the journey was that led you into this career.
So I started as a science nerd.
Wow.
In high school, I wanted to study biology. I did my undergraduate in science. And the things that I read outside of school were all to do with science. And that was what I was focused on. Then after I graduated, I worked for a year in a lab, and I was not particularly good at it. And I wasn't engaged on a day-to-day basis. So we worked on long-term projects,
Right.
but the day-to-day work of working in a lab, I didn't find as engaging.
Right.
Like the big projects that the professor in charge of it was in charge of was super interesting. But my work was doing the exact same thing, the exact same experiment over and over and over again. So I ended up doing my master's in bioethics, which was related to science and philosophy, but sort of a middle ground. And I
didn't
did
even know that was a thing. So.
I did my master's in bioethics, and I loved it. I love that subject.
Okay.
And we got to do a placement. You're going to do a clinical placement one day. So I got to do a clinical placement, and I worked in a hospital. And I didn't work. I volunteered. I was a silent fly on the wall. And I saw in the hospitals how there would be a team deciding what to do. So you'd have the doctors who are experts in whatever was happening with the patients. You'd have social workers, you'd have a bioethicist, but there's always a lawyer at the table.
Right.
And so they'd all present about the patient and what the problem was, because we didn't meet about every patient. It was only for where there was a problem to be solved.
Yeah.
And the bioethicist would say, well, speaking from a philosophy perspective, morally, this, that, and the other thing, and everyone would listen, and it was important. But then the lawyer would say, you have to do this. And everyone would just nod, and that would be the end of the meeting, and we'd go on. I was like, well, I don't want to be the bioethicist. I want to
You
be
wanna
the
be the
lawyer.
one in
I want to
control.
be,
Yeah.
So from my bioethics degree, I then went into law school. And I thought I would end up in a hospital, but nobody ever ends up exactly where, like, law is such a broad profession that you never know exactly where you're going to
That's what I love about law, actually. And I wanted to ask you, because I introduced you as counsel, and I also said public guardian and trustee, and that's like a lot of words that people don't really know much about. And I also know you do work in litigation, so that's another thing, because I feel like maybe because I'm a psych major, so I don't know as much, but maybe you can tell us a little bit of background about like all of these words, because from my understanding, litigation is when you go to court.
Yeah.
But don't all lawyers go to court? Okay.
All right.
Okay. So that's my misunderstanding.
Okay, so that's two questions. I'll talk about litigation first, because that's an easier answer. Litigation means you go to court.
Okay.
And I love going to court.
Okay.
It's the fun part of the job. And it's also every job, whether it's law or psychology, anything, you're going to have to balance being scared out of your mind or being bored out of your mind.
Right.
So I worked for 6 years selling T-shirts, and that was more on the bored out of my mind job. It was a fine job, and I did that for my summers, and that was fine. Whereas when you're brand new to any job, you're going to be scared out of your mind.
Right.
You know, you're going to be closer on the spectrum to that side. And so litigation, I do the same thing over and over and over again. But because it's litigation and you're in front of a judge who's so much smarter, you never know what the questions are going to be. And so it tips it. I don't want to be bored out of my mind. I don't want to be scared out of my mind. Litigation keeps me in that happy middle, where I know what I'm doing, but you don't know exactly what's going to happen. And so litigation is going to court, presenting in front of a judge, and the judge is going to tell you something you hadn't thought of before every time. Like judge, it's so hard to predict what's going to happen in court, and that keeps you on your toes, which I enjoy.
Okay.
And wait, so not all lawyers litigate?
No, so there are, the terms are solicitors and barristers. So barristers go to the bar is the court, and solicitors draft agreements, they can do employment law, they could do corporate mergers, they can do wills, but they do all the paperwork. They don't necessarily have to go to court.
Okay.
So if someone drafts a will, if I have my will drawn up, I go to a solicitor. They're going to draft a will that says I'm leaving all of my money to one child, right? And then after I pass away, the other children are going to come back and say, whoa, Mom didn't mean that. Why did you only leave it? Well, I left it to my daughter. And then the boys are going to come back and say, whoa, what do you mean? You can't just... And then they're going to hire a litigator who's going to go to court to say the solicitor didn't know what they're doing.
Right.
Or Mom didn't know what she was doing when she drafted that terrible will.
And I guess that's the part where like the public guardian part comes in.
So that was just a general example. The public guardian, thankfully, doesn't have to do will disputes. That is a very tough job. So the public guardian and trustee is under the provincial government, and so it's also under the Ministry of the Attorney General. Before I say anything else, I should mention everything I'm saying today is my views. So I'm just talking as Sarah, not as a member of the government. And so this is my personal thoughts, which is really important, actually, even though I have to say that disclaimer. It is really important because even within the Ministry of the Attorney General, there are so many different lawyers who do such different roles. Like that's the fun part of law, is you could be never in court. You could be in court every single day. There's such a variety. So I have my perspective on why I enjoy my job. And another student listening to this could be like, that's the worst job ever. Like, how could you choose to do that? Or another lawyer could be like, oh, I have the exact opposite experience also within the government. So I'm really only talking to my limited experience. It's not about being a government lawyer, because there's such an incredible breadth of roles within the government, and there's such an incredible breadth of being a lawyer, which is why it's so fun. So I work for the Public Guardian and Trustee. We work under the Substitute Decisions Act. So
another new word.
Substitute decisions. So that's a piece of legislation. So substitute decisions is what it sounds like. It's someone else making a decision.
Right.
So if here's a terrible example, but Suzu, if you got sick, if you had COVID and were not able to make any decisions on your behalf, and you didn't have anybody else, right? Your mom wasn't in town, no one was able to make a decision, and you needed to get medicine, the public guardian and trustee could, I'm oversimplifying to the extreme, But
no,
if
this is exactly like, I don't know if you ever use ChatGPT, but sometimes I tell them like, explain to me as if I'm a 5-year-old. That's exactly what you're doing, honestly.
So if you were incapable of making the decision for yourself, if your mom, who would be your substitute decision maker, or whoever it was, wasn't available on that day, then there's a chance the government would step in and make a decision.
Wow,
and so
I'm glad that's a thing. I'm happy.
I mean, it would go through a hierarchy of other people before it got there.
Honestly, if my mom is not there, I want the government to decide for me. I don't want anyone else. She's my ride or die. That's it.
It's so new for me to listen to those things. Like, 'cause I have like that mindset. Okay, you're after 18. You're just like everything is yours. Like, even I just want to clarify. Like, it's like we were talking about Susu, so she's like above 18.
Yep, she's an adult. She's fully able to make.
Everybody.
Yeah.
It's for everybody, right? It's not just the
So
kids.
we work with adults. We don't work with children. There are some exceptions to that as well. I'm oversimplifying, but we work with adults who are incapable. So either they have a developmental disability, they have a mental health issue, they have dementia. We see a lot of seniors because they've outlived everyone who had, they've outlived all the people who can make decisions for them. But yes, absolutely, it's for adults.
Okay, so I have just a quick question. So as I mentioned, like I'm accounting program. So you mentioned that you was in the STEM. So I know like my friends who want to be a lawyer. So they have like bachelors maybe in criminology, law and society. They have the idea about what they're gonna do in future, right? So how was your transition from STEM to law, and like how did you identify and figure out the things? Because it's quite different streams, right?
Yeah, I didn't know you worked in a lab too. Like you were in STEM.
I was in science. Just like their breadth of jobs, there's the person in our year who was one of the top students was studied opera singing.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can study anything. And as we were talking about when we walked in here, when you see it through that lens, you think, oh, psychology and law, they go hand in hand.
Right.
Or, you know, art and law, music and law. Like there's so many different things where your perspective that you bring in, that diversity is so good. Now, I will say, as a person who had a science background, I went into constitutional law and was like, I can tell you about DNA, but I don't know what the Constitution is. And I really missed out. So there's certain things where you're going to have strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
So,
but if you have to do, you will do it, right? That okay.
Yeah, I feel like it's. I had a similar experience because I'm doing a concentration in neuropsychology, although I'm a Bachelor of Arts. So whenever I'm in the class, I just feel like, you know, like there's neuroscience students around me and I'm like, I'm the little baby, like I'm just like, you know, in the little corner. I'm just like, yes, I'm doing it well, thank God. But I'm like, I'm trying, like, it's just the same example that you're saying, like, yes, I could tell you everything about cultural psychology and different cultures and the stuff that, like, you know, more on like the art side. But then in this course, I'm like more on trying to learn from scratch some things that people already learned in like first year because they had like other requirements, right? So
but it's going to be a richer class because you have
because
someone who's coming at it from a
yeah.
pure science perspective and then someone else who's coming at it with a different perspective. You're going to be able to contribute different things.
That's very true.
I just, because you mentioned you have like, you told us like you have 2 pretty kids, and I just want to know, like, being a substitute season actor, working under that, and like being a mom, so how your typical day looks like and how you start your day and work-life balance, as specifically as a woman, because I've been through that thing, like if you're not sleeping well, you're going to obviously have a women issues, a lot of things going on. So how you manage that?
So again, I don't speak for all women. That would be ridiculous. I can only speak for my own experience. So I actually have 3 children at the moment. I have 2 biological children. I have 1 foster child. I didn't know that I wanted to be a lawyer. I didn't know.
I feel like no one knows.
No, well, no, that's not true. There are some people who, when they're a little kid, they see something that gets them excited, and they're like, "I've always wanted to be an advocate. I've wanted to speak." You know, or you come up against an immigration issue, or you see your parents dealing with it, and you're like, "That was so unfair. I need to be able to address it." There are lots of people who come to law school. You know, they're animal rights activists. They've always known they were going to be. That wasn't me. The only thing I knew I wanted was to have kids. Like when I was a little, when I was in high school, I was like, I want to be able to have children. That was the only thing I knew.
I think that was a phase when you started getting baby fevers, right?
It wasn't. It wasn't.
It wasn't a phase. It was just like that's.
It was the only thing I knew that I wanted. Like it was the only thing where if you'd asked me in high school, I would have been like, I'm probably going to be an artist. Like I could have given you any number of ideas about what I wanted to do. But one of the reasons I chose law is that it's well paid. And so it allows me to support my family. And I didn't know if I'd get married or have someone to help me financially support my children. And but I knew the children were going to be there. Like I would have conversations even in high school with my future children. I'd be like, well, I was offered this in high school, and it was a difficult decision. But I was talking to my kids all the way through my life. Like it's hard to.
I honestly love that because I love your honesty, because I feel like a lot of people would think of law or people who are lawyers that they would put this side aside, and that would, or it would be like a second priority, or it would be like more of a balance. But the fact that it was more like, this is why I'm doing this, like I'm doing law to be able to afford for this bigger goal is amazing, honestly.
Like I'm doing this because of my family, because they are first, and everything I'm doing it just because of them and for them, I would say, right? And it happens because we are in that phase right now. Like if I'm talking about, I'm like around 20, 21, it's like everything's like study, career, right? Like we never think about, I have to earn money because I have to give a better future to my kids. We never think from that point of view. And I would say, honestly, this is for me something very amazing. Like somebody really openly talking about this concept. So it's so like normal, right? So you can keep that thing and you can work according to that thing, right?
Yeah.
But I loved my 20s, to be clear. And like I wanted to do everything because I knew that when I had kids, I wasn't going to be moving around as much.
Yeah.
Like I traveled as much as I could through my 20s. I was trying lots of different things that were new and exciting. The master's that I did, I went to New Zealand to study for my master's, so I got to meet people from all over the world. Like I did lots of different things, but I always knew that the only thing I was certain of was that I would have kids.
Yeah, so I guess that answers your question that like basically work-life balance was more like life-work balance.
Yeah.
You put that life first, and I appreciate that, honestly. So I guess the other question that we also had is if you had any challenges. I know Rubel was mentioning like just being a woman in general. So if you had any challenges specifically in the field, I don't know how a typical day looks for you, like working with the public guardian and trustee, but like if you had any challenges specifically due to like your identity as a woman, or
So you guys remember the pandemic?
yes,
Yeah.
The pandemic was awful.
right,
Everything switched. Everything changed. So our area of the law was considered urgent. So the courts were closed, but they were open for us.
okay.
Because you can imagine if someone needs a decision made, they need it made whether
There's a pandemic or not.
Yes, and because of the pandemic, there were more decisions to be made. And it was a very difficult time. So I would get up very early in the morning, I'd watch my children, and then my husband would work from 5 in the morning until about 2 in the afternoon, and then we'd switch, and I would work from 2 in the afternoon. I never saw my husband the entire time.
Oh my God.
And we had to learn, lawyers are very resistant to change. We had to learn a whole new system of doing Zoom court, which we had no experience with. And we were doing it early in the pandemic. Nobody knew anything. So everyone was a little bit afraid, right? We were afraid to be this close to another. You would never be able to be in person like this. So you didn't have as much help because you're doing it through these new Teams calls or, Zoom meetings. It was a very strange period. And so the only difficulty I really had during that period was, everyone is adapting and everyone had a hard time. There was nobody, my colleagues who worked by themselves, they didn't have anyone to talk to. So it's just my unique difficulty, but I'm aware that everyone had a tough time during the pandemic. It wasn't unique to those of us with kids. But I remember saying to my manager, I have no childcare. I cannot do this court. And she's like, what do you mean you have no childcare? Like, get someone in there. My parents are elderly. They're not coming over. They don't know.
Yeah.
We didn't bubble with anyone.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, you don't know. You don't know. I have 2 little children. You know, my daughter was not quite 2 at the time. I kept nursing her.
Yeah.
She was done nursing, and I had to be on Zoom calls. I obviously not with my camera on, and I would nurse her until she fell asleep so that I could be part of a call. And I put my son in front of television, and it was awful. Like there was nothing about that time, but I don't think it was unique. It was unique to parents, right?
Yeah.
Not so much to being a woman or a man, though of course, my manager at the time, who was also a woman, was sort of like, well, come on, Sarah, like get some childcare.
Yeah.
Like you're getting paid reasonably. You need to pay someone to do this. And I was like, there's no one to pay.
Yeah.
There's no one to come into our house that we trust that can watch the kids. And I remember that time.
Yeah, because even that was a pandemic time. That was COVID. So how can you risk somebody to enter your home, right, and take care of kids? That doesn't like.
And this, I'm talking about the pre-vaccine time when nobody knew.
Yeah.
And now, looking back, you're like, oh, I should have just taken someone into my house. Now I understand what the risks are, but at the time, we didn't really know.
Yeah, it was a lot of confusion for everyone. Like, we were washing groceries. Like,
We were washing groceries.
Like obviously, there
I was
a lot
pushing
of,
buttons with my elbow. Like
all of the decisions. Like, I know it's funny because you guys are working with decisions, but like decision making was for everyone just something that's very biased at this time. We just don't know. And I think like even that manager was probably like, I'm not saying anything about the manager, but I'm just like saying it's a little bit of denial, honestly. It's just like you're trying to think about the solutions that would have worked before the pandemic, but honestly they do not work right now,
I mean, to be fair to her, I don't know what
other solution would have
she
worked.
also has to deal with. You need someone in court.
Yeah.
You can't just not have someone show up.
Yeah, but I'm glad that the one experience that you remember is an extreme, there was a pandemic going on. It wasn't like all, the challenges that you would think about, because I was a woman and my manager was, from a different gender identity. And I was like, I expected another challenge. So I'm glad that wasn't your experience, because I would be sad to know if that was.
The government has salary transparency, right?
Okay.
So my salary please don't immediately Google this, but you can Google my salary.
Everyone, Google it right now.
That's the benefit of my name being Sarah Jones. It's actually a little harder to find because there are quite a few Sarah Joneses.
Because I emailed her and she didn't get my email the first time, and I was just looking for Sarah Jones online.
I'm so sorry. I missed your email.
And it was just like, it was really interesting. And somehow I found you actually, so I was very happy.
Destiny from Montreal Party to Club podcast.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. But because of that, my salary is based on my year of call. Okay. And so I've taken 2 generous leaves, and I'm still paid exactly the same amount as my male colleague who's had no children has taken no leaves.
Wow.
So it actually, the government, I think, does very well on making sure that I'm not held back in any way by having children. And my male colleagues are encouraged to take parental leave as well.
Wow. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow. Oh, for sure. And so their salary isn't impacted. So I take a leave of absence. But because my salary is based on my year of call, it's going to be the same whether I have 3 more kids or I don't. And I like that a lot about the government. And the fact that I know, because we know women don't ask for as much money, right? Yeah. And you don't go in. But now I have, not all women, but like it's a problem that women aren't paid as much.
Right.
And, employers will say, oh, it's because they took a year off or they did this or that.
Yeah.
And because I know exactly what my male counterparts are paid, I can see, I can research, and I can go in and advocate for myself.
Yeah, no, I like the system. I would want to see like the salary of everyone, just so I know,
I think it could be anonymized. I don't think it needs to be linked to me.
Yeah, it shouldn't be like. Yeah, I would say like the
specific title.
Yeah, working as a counsel at this place. What
how
is
much
they
get
the
for the job, right?
And then I'll be like, oh, that's Sarah, but that's okay. Maya, I wanted to ask you. Or you wanted the question, you can go ahead for it.
No, I just want to, because I'm wondering, like, for the payment, like, so I was wondering, is it like you get it's a fixed amount, like they get it? Or because I know from my some like friends that how they get, like, how many cases you're handling, you just get the payment from the clients, right? So how the things work in your field?
No, so I have a set salary.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I believe that's like a government thing. Like
that's a government thing.
That's how it is. I would expect it to be that
No,
way.
if I was working at a private firm, you would expect to get a bonus based on the number of hours you work. So if you work more hours, you get paid more money.
So I think here we can differentiate between like the working in the public sector and the private sector. Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you were mentioning public and private because that's what the question was really about. So I noticed like you had a lot of like changes in your life. So you had like the STEM, and then you moved to, the law journey, and a lot of like changes. So I would say you're not a person, although you say like lawyers in general are resistant to change, I'd say you are, more flexible, on the flexible side. But you have been working for this job for almost 12 years.
Yeah.
What's going on? Like what?
I'm resistant to change. No, and again, this is just my personal experience. I love my job.
Okay.
I love my job.
I'm glad.
That's good to hear.
It is like...
Is there something that specifically motivates you, or is just generally just the work in general? Just...
To me, it's like a unicorn job, and everyone should be so lucky that they find a job that hits so many of their boxes.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm well enough paid that I don't complain every day about nobody appreciates me or they don't value my work. Lawyers, our society does value lawyers. I don't know why we don't value other careers to the same extent, but lawyers are generally well paid for what they do, and I consider myself well paid. My work allows me to be home on the weekends. I don't work weekends. I sometimes work in the evenings, but now with the pandemic, I'm allowed to leave at 5 and I log back in after my kids are asleep and do a little bit more work. It's so flexible, and I am treated like an adult. If I get my work done, I don't need to stay in the office to show somebody that I'm there. I do have clients, so I am the equivalent of in-house counsel, which means I'm giving advice to people who are there. So I do need to be reachable. I'm not saying I can disappear, but it's a really lovely environment to work in, and it's not boring. Now, some might disagree with me because I've done the same role for so long, but because I'm litigating, because I'm in court, there's so much strategy, there's so much thinking about how you handle a file that I'm not bored. I think other people might be. They'd be like, oh, come on, you see the same fact scenarios over and over and over again. But you're working with opposing counsel, you're trying to negotiate a better agreement for someone, that's never boring. That you're meeting so many new people on all sides of the file, that for me, I'm not bored. I go in, I try and solve problems every day. They have a real impact on people in Ontario. So I get to feel good about it. I get to feel like I'm helping other people, and it's a really great job. And then the other thing, of course, is that I enjoy my colleagues very much. So it's, like-minded people tend to be attracted to the job. It was interesting preparing for this and seeing so many questions about what is it like being a woman in the law. My office is very women heavy, the majority of my colleagues. And though this has fluctuated, at the moment, my managers, all the people in the senior management positions are all women at the moment.
Right.
So that may be part of why really I haven't had any issues.
Challenges
that I can easily put my finger on.
Yeah.
You like the friends all around, and one thing I was wondering, like, because you mentioned like you don't need to stay there because you have to show up to somebody, right? I love that point. Like, so far you're doing your task, you're good to go, right? That's another thing. And also because you mentioned like you have to go through like Zoom meeting, you have no idea about that, like Zoom code that you set up in the pandemic. And I just want to ask, because if we look into this time, like you're undergrads or maybe in the education academic we're doing right now, so do you have any like idea, or not I would say advice, like what that you think like professors should add right now? And then it will helpful for the future lawyers, or maybe the changes that like change resistance or something like that to avoid that kind of situations.
I mean, we're always going to have Zoom court now.
Okay.
Now that we've changed, and it has benefited so many of my clients who are unable to get into court, who now just need to have a phone, right? And it's made access to justice in that small way much easier. Because even if you're confined to your home, you're able to be absolutely present in the same way as everyone else.
Right.
So that there are benefits to being in Zoom court, but there are also detriments.
Okay.
In my opinion, we talked about this, you don't have the body language.
Yeah.
You know, when we were coming in, it was like, it was so nice to meet you and to see you and to know. And so I think so. I went to university a long time ago, so this is going to be out of date. But when I went to university, all the classes were in real
person,
life.
yeah.
They were in person, and you had study groups, and the study groups were in person. And now even some of the high school courses are being taught remotely. And my child who's in grade 6, he has to watch YouTube videos to be like how to figure out the area of a parallelogram. Like he's not getting taught that in grade 6 because he's got a YouTube video that does it better than the teacher thinks he can do it. And it's so interesting. So it's not going away. Like we're going to get Zoom education or YouTube education, remote education, but I think something's lost in that.
Yeah.
Even if something is also gained.
Yeah, I feel like this is even in the workplace as well. It's not only in learning. Because, for example, it wasn't before, but like a little bit before this time when AI is everything, we had a lot of like, like the safety related modules. It was more of like they see you in person and they tell you like this is a hazard, this is not, whatever. But now it's more like cybersecurity training, and it's just like online. So it's everything is shifting, even like in a workplace.
Yeah.
And I think we'll adapt to it just like we adapted to COVID, because that was like the most adaptation I think we could have done.
It was accelerated.
Yeah, it was a lot. So
yeah.
And I remember you were mentioning that one of the things that like make the job really rewarding is the fact that like you're really representing like a lot of vulnerable people, individuals. I'm wondering if you're willing to share if you had like a specific experience that made you want to be like representing vulnerable individuals, or was it's totally fine, it was just like I just want to work with these people. It's not a specific relationship with the topic.
I'd always thought I would end up working in a hospital. I mean, I also thought as a kid I was going to be an artist. So like I've gone through, everyone is allowed to change, and then I'd be a scientist or a doctor or this. Like everyone, you want to be an astronaut when you're young, or a superhero, and then you change your mind.
I thought that was special. Never mind.
My daughter's actually really disappointed. I say, you can do anything. She's like, I can't be a superhero. I'm like, you can help in so many. Anyway. But you see, as we get older, what we want changes based on what we're good at and what opportunities are placed in front of us. So a lot of it was just, this was a job that was available while I was looking for a job, right? You cannot predict exactly where you're going to end up. because certain jobs aren't going to be open the day you're looking for work. But I had volunteered a long time ago with outpatients at a psychiatric institute. And so I did have some experience. I have some family members who have mental health issues. So but like all the lawyers in our office have come at it from one way or another.
Right.
But everyone who has a big enough family is going to be impacted by somebody who's been incapable at one point or another.
That's true.
Just because mental health issues are so common and so pervasive. But so is dementia, and so are brain injuries. And you live long enough, you're going to meet people who have all these issues, and we. The three of us here, you never know what periods of incapacity we may have during our lifetime.
Yeah, that's very true. Whenever I tell someone I'm a psych major, and they're like, "What happened to you?" So I'm like, so I totally understand. But honestly, everyone different. Like Rubel works with numbers, but I wouldn't assume what happened to her.
What happened to her?
Yeah. But obviously, I know.
I would say I just need money. Because she mentioned I want to be lawyer because I want to be financially strong.
Yeah, that's also a reason. Yeah.
But it's not just. I remember one of my good friends had a tough time with the fact that I was going into law, and she's like, "You're selling out." And I said, "Look, it allows me to be home at 5 and to be done my job. Whereas if I'd gone into the arts, which I love, I would have been hustling all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to work so hard to be able to work.
Yeah.
You have to be able to hustle to find the next job. And it's such a privilege to be able to just sit down and work and do the law, which is the fun stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not working on marketing. I'm not working on finding a job or promoting myself.
Yeah.
It's a real privilege that I sit down every day and I get to do the interesting stuff.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people, I guess on social media, try to view the 9 to 5 as boring. Honestly, I would romanticize that. I would love that, because I know everyone on social media would take the other art stuff and I'm free and stuff, and I'm working 70 hours per week just because it's your own thing. And the beautiful thing is that when you work this 9 to 5, not that I'm romanticizing it, I kind of am, but when you finish, you can work on your art stuff later on or in the weekends or whatever you want. I
don't know if you guys watch that videos. Now people are also posting 5 to 11 and now a day in life.
Yeah, that's the
after
opposite.
5 to 11. So what I usually do after my office.
Yeah. I got my job on a 4-month contract. So I started on a 4-month contract because one of the lawyers was taking time off to write a play. And then I got to go see the play. So the government lawyers often do have another passion, which they then have time to follow up.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I just want to quickly ask you, so is there any, if you're fine with sharing, so is there any case or any individual you met during the job that leaves a big impact or a big experience for you, a life lesson or something like that? Do you have any?
I'm sure you have a lot of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, my first manager just retired last week, so he's been front of mind. But it was the first job I had as a lawyer, and so I came into the office, and you don't know what you don't know when you sit down. You're like, I know how to research and put me to work. And he was so kind to me and was very good at knowing what I would know and what I wouldn't. You're going to be uncomfortable here, so let's spend a little bit of time. And you can do on your own. So I'm going to leave you alone and get it done. And he did a really nice job. And I think one of the reasons I stayed so long is he really set me up for success in not micromanaging the things that I could do by myself, but offering support. And that, I have never been a manager, and I don't know that I would be good at it. He was good. He was good at offering the right amount of support at the right time.
Yeah. No, I'm glad because I guess my next question, because you're kind of mentioning this mentorship style. So I guess I'm just asking if you have any advice or basically mentorship for the listeners. If they want to get into something like this, how would they prepare? And on the undergraduate level or in general?
Your undergrad can be anything. Right. Follow what you enjoy.
Okay. And then just, is there any volunteer experiences that you would recommend? Or I know you had a bunch of really random ones which were really helpful for you, so that's good. But
so my volunteer experience was working at the Art Gallery of Ontario giving tours. I was a tour guide, and that was a relief from doing anything related to my subject matter, but it also gave me experience talking to people who I'd never met before. So you learn skills. So really do what you enjoy doing, you know, because you'll learn some skills. You might network and meet someone you didn't expect to meet.
In Montreal on a random trip.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You just can't predict.
Yeah.
You know, even talking about this, I can make it seem like there was a pathway to get me to the job I am, but I'm looking backwards. When you're looking at it forwards, you have no idea how the little experiences are going to add up to get you where you're going.
Right.
And what person is going to help you more. Like when you meet them, you don't know.
You never know.
So it's so hard going forward, but the more diverse experiences you can have, like follow the ones you enjoy. You'll be happier.
Right. Okay. That's a good little advice, honestly.
I think that's gonna be like, you know, like honestly, if I'm talking about, I'm going with 30 years, so have courses and everything. So right now it's like so many, like, you know, just I want a good GPA because I want a good internship. I want this. I want that. But somehow, like, you know, there's a one like, oh, this is the whole point. The line, this, like, after something you realize, oh, I was doing this, but I'm missing this. But this, whatever I'm doing was nothing for, like, what I want to achieve. So it's like my mom used to say, like these are the 4 years that you're never going to get back. Just like live, because for me personally, because for I'm like right now, if I'm on accounting, so after graduation I'm thinking to switch into full-time. So I don't think if I ever get time to go back to school or even like in my 20s and experience that thing. So like the advice you gave, like just live, just like, you know, enjoy. It really matters, like, because I'm trying to implement on my life and what's right now I'm doing. I was like, I'm missing some part, like that enjoyment, like the time for yourself and to live your 20s or experience the things you're never not gonna get that time.
There's going to be lots of work ahead of you.
Yeah.
You're going to have lots and lots of time to work.
Yeah, sometimes she scares me. Imagine just 4 years and then full-time job. You're not going to meet your friends like randomly in the class. Hey, guys, what's up? Like, you never get that time.
It's okay, Rubo. I'll see you after
you have to.
After we graduate.
You have to.
But I want to, this question is definitely like, it's not like an end of episode question because I should have asked it like hours ago, but I wanted to ask because you know how like there's different fields in law, like there's criminal law, there's corporate law. Is litigation the name of what the field of law is, or is it like corporate law, litigation person?
So I work maybe in estates law in a little tiny slice called guardianship law.
Okay.
So like the bigger slice might be litigation, then estates, then guardianship. I'm very, very specialized in one little tiny sliver.
Yeah, no,
but I
that's
like that
amazing.
because I know my little area. And if you were to put me into a criminal proceeding, I would probably
just go to jail.
I would just, yeah, I'd be like, nope. But also like mergers or acquisitions. Like I wouldn't know the first thing. It'd be like if you're a knee doctor and someone's like, oh, can you look at my brain? No.
Yeah, no, that makes sense because when I was like, you know, trying to understand what litigation is and all of like the different keywords, I thought maybe like there's maybe like public law or civil law. I wasn't really sure, so I'm glad like I asked you so that if anyone is interested, they know what sector of law that is.
They're definitely gonna check the salary first.
yeah, I'm sure everyone's like writing down notes on like what to check.
Then let's go towards the path.
If money is the only thing, you want to go towards a private firm where the more you work, you get paid more.
Okay.
Okay, that's a piece of advice there. Okay.
Then the difficulty is, you know that the harder you work, the more money you make. If you're really driven by money, how do you go out and enjoy your friends?
Yeah.
Because like I could be earning. You're always on the clock.
Right.
Yeah.
If I was sitting at my desk right now, I'd be making money. Whereas if I sit down and work overtime hours, I'm helping someone, but I'm not helping myself. I'm not getting paid anymore because I've given up my weekend.
Even like, because you mentioned like you love to work because you have good colleagues, you have surroundings. So if the money is the only motivation, you're gonna miss that part.
Yeah.
You're just sitting and doing the task. You don't want to even talk to anybody because you just want to complete your hours and earn the money.
Yeah.
So I think money can be a motivator, but not like everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They always say, not always, it's probably like, I read it somewhere on like a Facebook little thing, but it's like, you will never work a day in your life if you love the job. And I don't think you will love the job only from what you get, like as in money. Obviously, it's an incentive, but you know, it's not the only thing.
Yeah.
So,
but it's not just about it being adequately recognized that you know what you're doing and you're being compensated for it.
Right.
And I think so many women aren't compensated because our society doesn't value women's work. And that is not the case in law. And it's nice to be recognized as someone who has experience. And I have done 12 years of work in this field, and I am good at what I do.
Yeah. 12 years are great years, man. It's not a short time of period. 12 years is huge.
Yeah.
Because I was going through. I'm sorry if I stalked you on LinkedIn because I was doing the research on your background and I was like, when I was like from this year to present,
on LinkedIn it's like 12 years. I'm like, wow. Usually when I see that, I think like, oh, the person just hasn't updated their LinkedIn in forever.
Exactly.
But never mind. She just genuinely likes the job, and I'm glad you do. And you were just mentioning women, so I guess like we will wrap it up with this question. That some women maybe like are listening right now, and they're like intimidated by a job in this field. What advice would you give them for, because maybe not all of them will have this like female identifying dominated, field and manager that maybe you said helped you.
So I was always afraid of cross-examination. I'm still afraid of cross-examination. That's scary. You got to think on your feet and you got to be really fast, and you've got, so depending on what you answer, I've got 6 different questions lined up, and it's for me, very confusing. So very intimidating, right?
Yeah.
And I try and avoid it if I can. So use it, right? Use it. You know you're going to over-prepare. You know you're going to try and get as much education. I want to go watch as many cross-examinations as I can. But I think so many of us have that, and then we avoid it, right? And if you can not avoid it, then you're going to be so much better prepared than anyone else who doesn't have the fear.
Right.
Because when I do a cross-examination, I spend way, way, way more time than I should preparing so I don't look like an idiot.
No, that makes sense. I like that you said like even watch things that could help as well. This is not an advertisement, but I've been binge watching The People's Court, which is like kind of like Judge Judy, but like another judge.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not into law like that, guys, but honestly, it's teaching me so much about like, the type of questions a judge could ask. I don't know.
How the court scenes are.
Yeah, so things like that could help. It could be as simple as that, or actually going to court and maybe trying, or coming to our events, guys. Like women in law do
or
have
reach out to lawyers and ask them.
Yeah, and networking.
We all love talking about ourselves.
Yeah, so that's why we have a whole podcast for it.
Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, so I guess with this, did you have anything else you want to say to the audience or anything? Honestly, anything on your mind?
No, I mean, if you're considering law, I wouldn't dissuade you. Like, it's such a broad subject, and you don't even know what you might fall into. Like, I didn't know the Public Guardian existed when I applied for law school. I had no idea. And when I started on day one, I didn't know that I would end up there 12 years later, enjoying the work as much as I do. So it opens up so many doors to consider law. When I think about all the careers that my colleagues who I went to school with have ended up doing, it's pretty amazing what you can do with a law degree.
That's very true. Yeah. All right. With that being said, this wraps up this episode. Thank you very much, Sarah,
My
for
pleasure.
being
Thank you.
our guest today. And we'll see you guys in another episode of Lady Justice Talks, where curiosity meets law.